Hi, welcome to the Frugal Frau. I'm Suki, your host. And today I want to show you how I make candied orange peel. And this is some that I've made in the last few days. And what I typically do is I make a little bit after I've eaten the oranges, usually in the evening, let it cool down, and then I throw it in this dish and keep it in a cool spot, either in the cold box outside or in the refrigerator. And it will keep for a bit. It won't keep for decades or anything because there is no preservatives or anything in here, but it'll keep long enough. Sometimes if I'm in a real hurry, I'll just take the orange peel that I've already chopped up finely and I'll just stick it in a bowl with a cover on it and just put the sugar on it if I don't have time to actually stir it up and dissolve the sugar, although frankly that doesn't take very much time. So what I need to do first is take this orange, and this is the last orange that I have from a subscriber that sent me these fresh from her California backyard. Now, so what I need to do is cut the top off, and then I cut a couple little slits in, and then I simply just peel it off. And I probably won't eat these orange slices tonight, but I'll eat them tomorrow. And I'll tell you, there's nothing like fresh, organically grown oranges that you know were picked ripe and ready to go. The flavor is just tremendous on them. Put my orange there for the morning. So, and the reason why I want to show you this is because these oranges, of course, have no preservatives on them. There's no A-peel or any other, whatever the latest and greatest preservative that they're using. And they don't have to disclose necessarily, so I'm not going to do that. There's a little bad spot right there on the skin. I'm getting rid of that. Then, after I chop these up, I will simply cook it down with the sugar, which I will add to my pot, which I have a little bit of water. I have about a 1/4 inch of water in there. And these are 3 orange peels. That should be enough, but sometimes if I feel that's not enough, I'll add a little bit more water. And the water is simply there to help the sugar dissolve thoroughly before I start cooking it down to get it kind of thicker. So, but I'm so happy to have received these oranges as a gift. And I know that Azure Standard recently stated that they are using citrus and it does not have A-peel or any other things sprayed onto the skins, so that's good to know. Although typically I try to eat what's in season, but since somebody sent me the oranges, I'm not complaining. And I'm just going to simply chop these up finely. I sharpened my knife ahead of time, so it's nice and sharp. I'm just trying to keep my fingers out of the way so that I don't chop my fingers up. And I like to get it pretty small. So once I get these chopped up finely, I'll show you the whole batch and we can proceed with the cooking of the sugar solution. Now I know that I've said earlier that I don't use sugar, which is generally true. I don't use a lot of sugar in any particular thing, but the only way to make candied orange peel and the only way to keep it so that I can actually use it in baking is to preserve it this way. Although I suppose if one had a freeze dryer, one could do it. But again, that's not in keeping with my Frugal Frau homestead because I try to avoid using all kinds of fancy, expensive electronic gadgets. So I'm using raw organic sugar, cane sugar, that I did order from Azure Standard because obviously I can't grow cane sugar on my property. And what I haven't tried, and I might have to do this sometime, I haven't tried doing this with maple syrup. Now I know, because I did it once, that I can take the maple syrup and turn the maple syrup into maple sugar. And that's a bit of a tricky process. It requires a candy thermometer, which I have, and I don't recall off the top of my head what that temperature is, but I know that it can be done. But and then, of course, the process would just be the same as with this sugar, because you can use the maple sugar just as you would any other granulated sugar product. Okay, well, my orange peel is all chopped fine enough. I have water in there in this pot, and I think I'm going to add more water because this was a little bit more orange peel than I typically do at a time. Usually I just do one at a time, but I had 3 today. I guess we decided we needed to eat more oranges today. And, well, we'll eat that one tomorrow. So I'm going to add a little more water to this. And I add just enough to kind of have it so that they can be slightly submerged. And the only reason why I do that is to allow the sugar to dissolve in the water after it's heated up, because it just has a less of a tendency to burn that way. So I have my pot over here, and I'm heating up the water, and I'm going to adjust the temperature a little bit. There. And then I will reduce that temperature, and then I will add my raw sugar to that. And I'll probably add a 1/2 cup of sugar, which, yes, is a lot of sugar, I agree. However, this is the only way that you can actually successfully preserve the candied orange peel. If you're going to do candied orange peel, you need to add a decent quantity of sugar, and it needs to get all gooey like this, and it will firm up in the refrigerator or the cold box or wherever you put it if you have a cold room in your house nicely. So I had the water heating up, and it's lukewarm right now. And I added cold water to the pot because there are minerals in our water since it is well water. All right, so I can't add my sugar yet. I want my water to be a little more heated up. I'm going to move my cart slightly out of the way because I want better access to my pot. It's really nice having it on the casters for that purpose. And I'm actually going to move my sugar over here closer. So I'm just waiting for this to heat up. All right, it's heating up quite quickly, so I'm going to adjust my temperature down a bit. So I have it on medium low. So here's 1/4 cup, and there, 1/2 cup. I think that's going to be enough sugar. And again, this was 3 good-sized oranges. So it's probably enough. And the sugar is already dissolving because the water was already quite warm. And I just have to keep stirring this so that I don't burn it. And this is one of those things I haven't done on the wood stove yet. But I could do it, I'm sure, just by using either a trivet or moving it over to the area of the wood stove that's not above the firebox, but above the oven part, because it tends to be cooler on that side on the surface. So I've not done that yet, but I could. But I'm down here this evening, so I thought I'd just use this little electric burner real quick. And it's really just a matter of having the excess water now evaporate off of here. And you just need to keep stirring it. Or actually, you could probably go away for a minute or two, but it's a good thing not to go away for too long. I have to admit that the other day I did that, and all of a sudden I smelled something because I got distracted with some other job. And I had made caramelized orange peel. It wasn't burnt, and it smelled really good. And I put it on top of some parchment paper, and it just got eaten up as a little treat. It was only one smaller orange skin, so I wasn't too upset about that. It was just a little happy accident and made this nice little thing that was probably not good for our teeth, but we ate it. All right, this is just going to take a few minutes, so we'll see you when this is to the stage where I can let it cool down and then add it to my other container full of already candied orange peel. Okay, my orange peel is almost completely cooked down. I'm going to let it go another minute or two, and as it cools, it will thicken. And so you can see it's quite thick and gooey around the orange peel itself, and there is some moisture down there at the bottom of the pot. I've reduced the temperature to about halfway on this particular device. And I could boost it up a little bit more and then make sure I stir like crazy. I pushed it up to 9 just to get this water off quickly, and I will be removing it from the burner very shortly. That's all the moisture that it needs to come out. This will thicken up as it cools now. Okay, I'm going to place it over here and let it cool a little bit. And it's interesting how once it's been cooled down, the skin actually gets a little darker. And I don't exactly know what causes that, but I don't worry about it. Again, I will be using this up within the space of a few weeks for various and sundry dishes and meals, and probably mostly in baked goods. I probably could can this, and then it would keep longer, but this just really isn't a large enough quantity to can, so I don't think I'll go through the bother with that. I suppose if I had my own citrus grove, I would do that. But I live in the Northeast in a very cold climate, a nearly zone 3 climate, so I don't think that's going to happen. And there it is, my candied orange peel. All right, good morning. I'm down here at my assembly table in my downstairs kitchen, and I'm going to show you how we're going to make the gluten-free hearty oat scones. Now, this is a recipe I've been making for many, many years. Originally, the recipe was a whole wheat oat scone recipe from Stella Standard's book entitled Our Daily Bread. Kind of a nice title. Anyways, I've adapted it over the years to make it gluten-free, and so I will be using oat flour today. And I always used rolled oats in it, so that didn't change. So really the only thing that changed was I went from whole wheat flour to whole oat flour. And the first step one needs to do is chop their butter up into small pieces, at least the way I have modified the recipe. The original recipe said to use melted butter, but I find that the chopped butter works better. It makes for a slightly lighter textured scone, which is much nicer. And I will put the recipe down in the show notes, or you can also download it free from my tungsten carbon website. And I'll put the link down there in the show notes too. Okay, oh, and the one on the link from tungsten carbide will be a PDF format. So what I want to do first is just dump all my butter, which I chopped up earlier this morning, into the bowl, and I'm going to mix my some of the other ingredients in first. So what I like to do first is I like to mix in my pumpkin seeds. Now you could use any kind of seed. I just have lots of pumpkin seeds, so I tend to use pumpkin seeds. And so I usually put about 3/4 of a cup of pumpkin seeds in here. And the reason why I am doing the pumpkin seeds and then the oats together is to kind of help keep the butter a little bit separate. Kind of clings to, a little bit more there. It kind of clings to these bigger, chunkier things rather than just putting it straight into the flour, which I will put in last. And next I'll put in rolled oats, and that's 2 cups of rolled oats. And this is going to be making just 1 pan of oat scones. This is a 1/2 cup measure, so I need to do this 4 times. That's 3. And that's 4. 4 halves does make 2 cups. Alrighty. And then sometimes I like to add whole oats to this. So I'm just going to add a 1/2 cup because they don't totally dissolve, but you get this like little chewy texture in it, which I think is nice. So I add a 1/2 cup of those. And then I'm simply going to mix all of that together. And I'm just kind of crunching it together. The butter's actually kind of soft already because it was sitting out. And the house is warm because we have the stoves going. Temperatures are dropping again outside. We're expecting temperatures below 0 over the next weekend, so we need to keep those stoves running. Then I will add 2 farm fresh eggs. We can thank the girls outside for giving us eggs every single day, and even though it's getting colder out there, still laying. We don't put extra heat on them, or we don't even put lights on them because we don't like to force them. So when they stop laying, if it gets too cold, that's fine. They deserve a break. And I have other eggs set aside that I've water bathed, so that's not a problem. And I'm simply going to mix this egg in and get it incorporated into my oat and pumpkin seed mixture. There we go. Now, I like to make sure that my flours are going to be well mixed. Oh, and there's the candied orange peel, the rest of which I put in there last night. And I like to make sure that my flour, baking soda, and salt get well incorporated before I add that to the more wet mixture here. And yes, let me get the flour in. So I need to put in 2 cups of oat flour. So I keep the oat flour in large containers. I think if you watched the pantry tour video, you saw that I have a whole haul full of dry goods like flour in 5-gallon buckets with lids. That was, I believe, the 2 cups. Yes, that was 2 cups. Now I need to add a teaspoon of salt and a teaspoon of baking powder. There's a teaspoon of sea salt. And a teaspoon of baking powder. And then I will simply whisk these together. And that way I know the baking powder and the salt got evenly distributed in this mixture. So that's my flour mixture, and I don't know if you can hear it, but my rooster is crowing in the background outside. It always makes me smile when I hear him. Now I'm going to add orange peel to my oat scones. Now, sometimes I do this with dried apple, sometimes I do it with dried cranberries. I've done it in the past with raisins or currants, but I don't have any of those things on hand at this point. So I'm using from my pantry the candied orange peel. And I'll probably put approximately a half to 3/4 of a cup in there. That looks like enough. I don't want it to overwhelm the scones. And then I get that all mixed together before I add the flour in. And then what I'm going to do to keep the butter not too creamed, because I do want a little bit of separation there for a lighter texture, is I will just simply hand mix the flour in with my hands. I find that works the best. Yeah, it's messy, but I don't care. Before I do that, I'm going to get a little extra flour in this cup so that when I go to spread that out, I have it without having to lift up the measuring cup with a messy hand. All right, that looks fairly evenly distributed, so I'm happy about that. Now I simply add my flour mixture. Give it a little stir first with this. Then I can dig in with my hands. Yes, my hands are clean. I have washed them ahead of time. Although, you know, technically it wouldn't matter all that much since they're going to get baked, but some modicum of hygiene is always good practice in the kitchen. There. All right, here I go. Fun part. It's a bit of a crumbly mixture, but I don't want it to be too uncrumbly. Because again, I'm going for a lighter texture rather than a cakey texture. All right, now I'm going to add just a tiny bit of water, just enough to help it stick together. So that's a total judgment call, not really a specific measurement. I just want to be able to get it to stick together in a slight ball when I squeeze it. If I squeeze it, it's sticking together now. So that's good. And that's all you need to do to mix that. I have my baking sheet. And this is my smallest baking sheet, but this is the one that fits in my wood cook stove oven. And again, it's the Baker's Choice wood stove cook oven. And it's a bit of a small oven, I have to admit. But for 2 people, it's okay. But if I had a family, I would go for a wood cook stove that had a larger oven. All right, so now I'm just going to dump this entire mixture out on my cookie sheet. Yeah, it looks like a mess right now, but it hasn't been squished together. Now I'm going to squish it together. So you can see it's fairly crumbly, but it's because I'm trying to preserve a lighter, flakier texture rather than to make these a heavy, dense, cakey texture. And so yes, they'll be a little crumbly, but that's really what I prefer to have in a scone. Now, you may prefer to have a more cakey texture, and that's fine. Just add a little more liquid and maybe a little more flour. But basically, if I count the years that I've been making these scones before I started doing them gluten-free, it's 42 years. Yep, it's a long time, but that's okay. I like them. And my guests and friends have always liked them too. And this is kind of a nice and colorful one because you've got the green, you've got the orange in there. And I think this is the first time I've actually made them with candied orange peel. Now, I've made oatmeal cookies with the orange peel in before, but I've never made the scones. So, I think, and a little bit of dusting flour on the top. I don't know why I do it, I just do it. And then before I put them in the oven, I will score them probably in eighths and stick it in the oven. But I did not bring the knife down with me today. But there, so what looked like a crumbly mess has indeed stuck together adequately. And it's about 3/4 to an inch thick, and I can't make it perfectly round because the pan is longer than it is wide. But then again, the oven size limitations are limited mostly in the width direction, like that. So it's a little bit longer than this, but well, that's all right. I don't mind. This is certainly enough to have for ourselves and to share with a neighbor who I will call up to see if she would like to come over for some tea and scones. All right, there, that's beautiful. I need to score this and I need to go upstairs and put it in the oven, so I'll see you upstairs. I need to add a little bit of wood to my fire. My oven is currently at 350 and I need to bake these scones at approximately 375. Now I simply put my scones into the oven and I will set a timer and come back and get them when they are completed cooking. And it's been 30 minutes. My scones are done. They're beautiful. I set them up there to cool a little bit. Show you how lovely they are. And now I can cut them. And I will slather them with butter and fresh organic honey. I hope you will make these and enjoy these scones yourself. Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe. And I hope wherever you are, bon appetit.